Hello everyone. Today I have my mentor, Angela Farlam, with me. Angela is an NLP trainer, mind coach, and a therapist. She's from Australia and she's my first personal mentor. I still remember Angela. During our coaching conversations, so lovingly, you made me realize how special I am. Actually, how special we all human beings are. I'm glad to connect with you again. Today, she is here to share her views about these three principles understanding. So, Angela, please share your thoughts about this understanding. What is this understanding and why should we study it?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Vibhuti. It's beautiful to be here, and it's been amazing to spend some time with you. And what the principles are, and is probably the most challenging to explain, because what we're pointing to with the principles is doesn't have any words. It's before form, it's before thought. And so making it simple, because it is very, very simple. It's a very simple thing, but we tend to complicate as human beings. So to break it down really, really simply, we think as human beings, we all think that's, we all have this ability to think, but most of us don't question our thinking. It's just something that happens. We don't question where does it come from. It's there. Or we can think, because we think something, it's important, and we need to remember it, and we need to act on it because it must be important because I thought it. But that's not true. Just because we think something doesn't mean that it's true. Doesn't mean we have to believe it. Doesn't mean that we have to run with that thought. We have to feed that thought. So I guess when people talk about, or we talk about principles, we're talking about the principle of thought, which is a truth, the fact that we have the ability to think. We think through the fact of thought. Thought itself is neutral. It's the thinking that we, as creative human beings, we've got a wonderful imagination, and we can create all sorts of fantasies and realities via our thinking, through the thoughts that we're paying attention to. Does that make sense? Is that simple, or is that complicated?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. So can you share, Angela, how studying about these three principles will benefit us? Why should we study them in the first place?
Wow. Well, I always use personal experience when I'm talking about the principles, because it's helped me personally in so many ways. Life has just become easier. Not that it was difficult before. I was already a therapist, already a trainer, and I was having great success with my clients. And I just sort of came across the principles via friends and colleagues, and became curious, and began looking at YouTube videos and reading books. And I listened to a 3-day seminar, and I noticed something within me that changed. And I couldn't put any words to it. It was just a nice, peaceful, easy feeling that everything's okay. And so I studied more. And over this last 4 or 5 years, probably now, I've been deepening my own understanding. Because it's not something that you learn like NLP is something that we learn techniques and we learn tools that we apply. It's more of a realization.
Yeah.
It's something that we can't give you a technique to get the principles, because there are no techniques, there are no tools. All we can do is point you in a direction so that you get glimpses, you get your own insight via a feeling. and life gets easier. That's why it's difficult to explain at times. But in way of explanation, last year for me alone was probably personally a challenge, one of the most challenging years I've had for a while, in that my daughter had a heart attack in August, a mild heart attack, and she's okay. She's on a cocktail of drugs now, but she's doing okay. And she did have she was born with a major heart defect, so she the risks have always been there, and she did have a pacemaker fitted in 2010, so the risks have been there. But even so, getting that news was a shock and a surprise. And then in November, I got a phone call from my sister-in-law that my brother had been diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumour. And I flew over to the UK and spent 2 weeks with him, and he seemed quite well, but he took a turn for the worse. And the day I was due home, he died, just literally hours after taking a turn for the worse. Now, I stayed an extra week, and that week with my family was, yes, it was sad, and I still can feel really sad at times when I think about my brother, but it was also magical. We had some wonderful moments of connection, and that's what the difference the principles have made to my life, because as my own understanding and grounding has grown, my knowing, it's not a belief, it's a knowing about how we're connected, has just sort of made life easier. Like, without trying, without analysing, without trying to figure things out. In fact, the less we do to try and figure out and analyse, life's going on in the background anyway. So I spent a week with my family, and at the end of the week said to my sister-in-law, I said, I wouldn't have missed this for the world. And then we both laughed, because it sounds like we'd been having a wonderful holiday, and it was one of the saddest weeks of my life. But amidst the sadness, there was a lot of joy, there was a lot of love, there was a lot of laughter and connection. And that connection has just strengthened through my brother being diagnosed with his brain tumour and him dying, because I know he's not here physically, but the energy of him is still here, because when we talk about the principle of consciousness, to me that is like the essence of who we are. That's our consciousness, that's like our soul, that's who we really are. We're not the person we think we are. And when I'm with a person now, more and more, they come to me with issues and problems and challenges, but all that is story made up through thinking. And I see beyond that to the essence of the person I'm speaking to, and that's pure essence, love, connection. That is beautiful, and I know that. And so it's a feeling, and when you get that feeling, you know that it's okay, or you're okay, or like, I know I worry about my sister-in-law, but I know she's okay, no matter what happens, because bad things happen every day. But there's more to us than this lifetime. Maybe that's complicated everything too much to start with.
But I can totally connect to that when you said that, you are okay. I do remember that, how you had made me feel okay. This realization I had got when I had spoken to you, that I am so okay despite whatever is going on in the outside world. There is an essence, as you said, in me where, which is always okay and which is always going to be okay. And before I studied this understanding, I didn't knew about all this. I always thought, that life is happening to me and I'm getting affected by me. I didn't know that I was okay all the time. So thank you for making me realize that.
Brilliant. You're welcome. The thing is, what's important to realize is that we get tricked every day. Sometimes every hour of every day. I do. because we're human beings, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, so we get lost in our thinking and we think it's real.
True.
And then we feel all the emotions when life's not going to plan, and I do it all the time. I can get really sad, I can get fed up, I can think, what's the point in all this? But even when I get this going on at times, there's a little part of me that knows that I know the other person, the real me inside me knows. It's like to me, and it's just metaphor, but it's like we've got the outside world where everything's going on, and then we've got the inside where it's almost like we've got a friend, we've got a flatmate, somebody we live our life with who never shuts up. And they're going on all the time about this and about that, and they've got an opinion about everything. And they never shut up. But then there's the real you, the essence of you, that knows that it's not true. And sometimes the flatmate just quietens down a little bit, and then you get that clarity where you can see beyond.
Yeah, true. So I think, mostly we think that the flatmate which you spoke about is what is the actual me talking to me all the time. But
Yeah.
when we study this, we realize that this is something which I don't have to listen to, and there is a real me inside which is going to give me all the answers, give me all the directions in my life if I am tuned in.
Yeah, it's like one of the metaphors I like using is like again, this flatmate is like having a brass band inside our head, and this brass band has every single instrument you can think of playing at the same time, and it's really loud in there. And then sometimes it quietens down, and then you can hear the soft flute playing in the background.
Yeah.
And that soft flute is your wisdom. It's the real you that's in there all the time, that every now and again manages to get heard.
True.
And there's a difference in the feeling when you're here listening to your wisdom, when you're making a decision from wisdom, it has a calmness about it. When it's your noisy flatmate in your mind that's wanting to make the decision, there's usually a sense of urgency. You've got to sort it now, and it's like it's important and it's urgent, and I've got to do it now. And it's like it's the worst time to make a decision, because it's usually just it's that what the flatmate is like our ego, our identity, it's all everything that we it's all through thinking, through our experience, our beliefs and our values and story. It's all story, and it gets so important.
Stories which look true all the time, which look like reality.
Yeah, but it's just a reality, not the reality. And like if we have somebody's annoyed us or made us cross or whatever, and we want to react to them because all this flood of emotion comes. There's a lot of thinking, a lot of emotion. We're hurt, we're upset, we might be angry. If at that time we take a few deep breaths, maybe go for a walk, go for a shower, go for a drive, not really trying to do anything, not trying to do anything to change the situation at that moment, just doing something different. What often happens is when you change inside as the noise quietens down, and you're like, people talk about level of consciousness rising, but it's just the noise is quieting down and you can hear your wisdom more. Often the issue just goes away. You find you don't need to say what it was that was so important to say like half an hour ago. It just doesn't seem important anymore. But unfortunately, people who don't know this react to the noise and think, I've got to do this now. And then it spirals down. And that's where conflicts and war and all sorts of things happen, because people are responding to the noise in the head.
True.
They're not seeing through they're not seeing beauty inside. They're not seeing beyond the behaviour. Because it's true, people do things that are not nice. People have behaviours. We all do. We all have ways that we might not like at times. Might be impatient, but we're not our behaviour. That's not who we are. And no matter how lost somebody gets, people can get really, really lost. When I say lost, they're sort of not in tune with the wisdom. So that's when, criminals and people do really bad things, but all they need to do is hear. And when they really know that somebody can hear them, then all they need to do is turn around and start looking on the inside for the answer rather than blaming the outside for what's wrong.
That's the direction we need to look, actually, inside. Inside is where all the answers lie. But no one has ever told us that is where you're going to find everything. And, we make this mistake of, looking in the wrong direction and, never finding the answers that we need in life.
Yeah. And me too.
Yeah, me too. I didn't knew this before. Just 2 years back, I didn't knew that there was something inside me which is guiding me and which is giving me all the answers. And I was so panicked all the time because I didn't knew what to do. When life is throwing challenges and things which I'm not able to handle, I didn't know what to do with all that. So anything else you want to add, Angela?
Oh, it's like really everything comes from love. We come from the energy of we're all the same. We all come from the same. We're looking for what we already have.
Yeah.
And when we see that, when we touch that space within, it's more about realizing that, life does get easier, but people I can't give it away. All we can do is to keep pointing in this direction. And what I would suggest to anybody who's sort of got a little bit of interest is to do what I did. Just read the books, I mean, Sydney Banks has a few books, YouTube clips, any books on the three principles, just because everybody has a different way of explaining, and you'll resonate with some people better than other people. It's not that, just people see what they see and explain it how they see it, because we can't, what we're pointing to is formless. There are no words, so we can't really, all we can do is point to it. And so the more that you read, the more that you absorb, the more your own understanding increases, and it's the way that that is the way that you feel. It's the way that you experience life. Like last year was one of my most challenging, but it was also one of my best years, because after doing a course myself for 18 months in London, and well, I'm in Australia, but I've been live streaming in London, I've just found that being more and more involved and listening and sharing and having my own coach, when I've got lost, it's like they've pointed me in a direction, and it's like, oh yeah. And all of a sudden, and they don't often realise the one word or the one phrase or something that they've said that's just been the thing that's just, I've got the insight, the light bulb. It's like, oh, of course. And then I just settle down. It's like we have a head full of thinking, and then we can't see beyond that for a little while until it settles on its own. But sometimes just having that little, it helps me. Reading and listening just helps me to I guess it's sort of like recentering in a way, and just recentering and realizing that, yeah, I'm a human being. Yeah, I forget. Every day I forget. But not half as much as I used to. And what tends to happen now, if I forget, I tend to, it's like it happens less often, and when it does happen, I sort of feel better more quickly. Does that make sense? Have you, I don't
Yes,
know, have you
yes.
noticed yourself? Yeah? Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And it's a game. We're just playing this game of life, and we forget it's a game, and then we think it's real, and that's when we feel bad, because we've forgotten that we're actually we're acting, we're the actor or actress in our movie, and we're also the director, and we're also the producer, and we make the script up as we go along, but we forget that it's a game. We forget it's a movie. It's all made up.
True. I forget it all the times. But then we remember also.
And that's so beautiful. It's like
Yeah.
we're in, it ebbs and flows. We're in, we're out, we're in, we're out. And that's okay. And we'll never ever stop doing that while we're alive, because that's part of being human. The more we realize that, we don't have to get upset about it.
Yeah.
It's just what's happening in that moment. We don't have to do anything to change it, because we know it will change on its own. We'll start to feel better. The more we stop trying to figure it out, analyze it, change it, we reset. We're built for well-being. We reset on our own. We don't have to. If we have physically, we are ourselves. If we cut ourselves, or we don't, if it's really bad, we'll go to a hospital and get stitched, but we're not thinking about it every second of the time, and like willing it to heal, and having to send platelets and antibodies, and we've got to watch it. We don't do that, but we do something different in our minds. And when it comes to our minds, we think we've got to analyze all the time and figure it out. We don't. Our bodies, our minds are built to reset.
Yeah. I think there's so much to know. Like a normal human being may not know all this. This
Well,
understanding takes us in this direction, and there's so much to know about ourselves that we have got all this built in inside us, and which is working perfectly all the time for us.
that's the thing. It is working perfectly. The thing is, we don't need to learn it, because we already know it.
True.
It's like when we're babies, we're in tune with our wisdom. We know, we're in the moment. We just know. And we're not, we as long as somebody comes along, we learn very quickly. We cry, we get fed, we get our nappies changed. But then we start believing what the outside world is telling us, and we lose sight of our wisdom. But it's still there inside. We just have begun to believe the outside world. But then when somebody comes along and starts pointing us in a direction, it's like we're just turning around to something that we actually already know. It's like coming home to something we already know.
Yeah.
So we don't have to learn it, we just have to realize it.
So there's no effort involved there, like no learning the techniques and strategies and anything. Just listen and our life changes
Yeah.
because we start realizing.
As the more we realize, what's actually going on, and that we're creating our reality through the thoughts we're paying attention to. And all a belief at the end of the day is a bunch of thinking. But we hold on to it, and it seems real. A belief is something that we believe is true. So we live our life through it, because we can't do any other. until we know something, until something convinces us that it's not true. So I can't make somebody change. I can't make them turn around and see what I see, or it's all we can do is be true to ourselves, and people can see, people will start wondering, why? And it's not about being happy all the time. That's not it either. It's about accepting the ebbs and the flows and letting the sadness in, feeling it, not avoiding it, not suppressing it, because we fear our emotions. We have this fear of, but there isn't fear. That we're either coming from fear or love, and there isn't anything that can hurt us on the outside, because it's all illusion. Yes, it can. Yes, I get upset. Yes, I'm worried about my sister-in-law, and I'm worried about my daughter. But we can't control situations and what's going to happen, but we can realize that there's a bigger picture. It's like we're just here for a short time, and I don't know all the answers, but I know that there's so many opportunities to learn and grow and evolve, and that our worth and our value is not coming from out there by getting the best job or right career or being in a relationship. Our values are given. We've all got the same. We're all equal. Nobody's better than anybody else, because we all come from the same. So when you realize that, it gives you a freedom to have a go at anything, do anything, because we stop ourselves. We'll get an idea, inspiration, and thought from our wisdom. Maybe like do a webinar or something, and then the head fills up with, oh, you don't be doing that, and don't waste your time, and who's going to listen to you anyway, and you've got nothing important to say. So you don't do these things because you're listening to the fearful voice inside, and the fearful voice still is only doing what it does because it wants to keep you safe. But it's coming from our thinking, and it's not true. We can't get it wrong, because we're not. There's just learning. There's just learning. The more we can tune into our wisdom, and it's not what worries me as well. This other thing that worries me is when people say things like, oh, it's just your thinking, you don't need to pay attention to it. Well, that's not what I mean, because if we said that, say if it could be a woman or a man in a relationship where him or her is getting badly abused. Now, if we said to that person, it's just your thinking, then they're going to think they've got to put up with being abused because it's just, they're thinking that makes them think. Well, that's not what we're pointing to. But often a person will have a lot of thinking about, should I stay, should I go, what will happen to me, how will I survive, and what will people think of me, I don't know, all sorts of thinking. And that's the wrong time to act. What I would suggest is that a person waits until they've got a clearer mind, because when they've got a clearer mind, they'll be able to access the wisdom, the flute, and they know the next step. They already know. That's not for me to tell them what that step is. They know it.
So it's like we know everything, but we don't know that we know it.
It's like, I said earlier about we've got this brass band playing in our head, and it's got that's all the thinking, that's all the noise, and then we've got this soft flute playing. That's like a soft flute in the mind that we don't hear because we're listening to the brass band.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've got a child pulling at your skirt saying, hello, I'm here, hello, I'm here. And we're ignoring the child. Or I don't call it a soft flute anymore. I call it a loud trombone. It's playing really loudly, but we're still focusing on the noise of the other, thinking that we don't hear the wisdom, we don't hear the trombone until we do. And when we hear it, it's like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I realise that? Or people say things like, I knew that all along, but they were hearing it, but they weren't paying attention to it. I hear that all the time. I do it myself. Oh, I knew.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hear it, sometimes we don't. But what tends to happen is I guess it becomes easier to hear it, and less urgent to respond to the noise. Yeah, there's just so many ways of interpreting something that really is formless and has no words. But that's the only way we can talk about it, is through metaphor and through story, because there is no other way to point to it. We can't give you the answer, we can't give you techniques, or all we can do is what Sydney Banks did, was share through his understanding, through his words, pointing all the time, pointing through his books, talking to psychologists and psychiatrists and people in hospitals and in prisons, and seeing the evidence of people's lives changing amazingly through just seeing something new, and maybe feeling something different. Maybe they felt the love, because that's where we come from.
That's so true. Love, that is where we come from.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you so much, Angela, for sharing your views. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.